It's a big setback for British Prime Minister Theresa May. Hours after the British cabinet gave its nod to the Brexit draft divorce deal, Theresa May faces two high-profile resignations. Brexit Secretary Dominic Raab has resigned. He claimed that he cannot support the deal for two reasons. In his resignation letter, he said that the regulatory regime proposed for Northern Ireland was a threat to the integrity of the United Kingdom. He added that cannot support the indefinite backdrop arrangement. He said that the European Union cannot hold a veto over UK's ability to exist. Northern Ireland Minister Shailesh Vara too also has resigned in protest of the deal. He claims that the deal would leave the United Kingdom in a halfway house. Earlier, Theresa May said that the agreed package was the result of thousands of hours of hard negotiations with the officials of the European Union. May said that the 585-page deal was the best that could be negotiated. All right, let's cut across to the British Parliament, where Prime Minister Theresa May is speaking right now.
Businesses only have to plan for one set of changes. We have agreed protocols to ensure Gibraltar and the sovereign base areas are covered by the withdrawal agreement. And we have agreed a fair financial settlement far lower than the figures many mentioned at the start of this process. Mr. Speaker, since the start of this process, I have been committed to ensuring that our exit from the EU deals with the issue of the border between Northern Ireland and Ireland. I believe this issue can best be solved through our future relationship with the European Union. But the withdrawal agreement sets out an insurance policy should that new relationship not be ready in time at the end of the implementation period. I do not pretend that this has been a comfortable process, or that either we or the EU are entirely happy with all of the arrangements that have been included within it. But of course this is the case. This is an arrangement that we have both said we never want to have to use. But while some people might pretend otherwise, there is no deal which delivers the Brexit the British people voted for which does not involve this insurance policy. Not Canada+++, not Norway for now, not our own white paper. The EU will not negotiate any future partnership without it. As the House knows, the original proposal from the EU was not acceptable, as it would have meant creating a customs border down the Irish Sea and breaking up the integrity of our United Kingdom. So last month I set out for the House the 4 steps we needed to take. This is what we have now done, and it has seen the EU make a number of concessions towards our position. First, the EU proposal for a Northern Ireland-only customs solution has been dropped and replaced by a new UK-wide temporary customs arrangement that protects the integrity of our precious union. Second, we have created an option for a single time-limited extension of the implementation period as an alternative to bringing in the backstop. As I have said many times, I do not want to extend the implementation period, and I do not believe we will need to do so. This is about an insurance policy. But if it happens that at the end of 2020, our future relationship is not quite ready, the UK will be able to make a choice between the UK-wide temporary customs arrangement or a short extension of the implementation period. Third, the withdrawal agreement commits both parties to use best endeavours to ensure this insurance policy is never used. And in the unlikely event that it is needed, if we choose the backstop, the withdrawal agreement is explicit that it is temporary and that the Article 50 legal base cannot provide for a permanent relationship. And there is also a mechanism by which the backstop can be terminated. Finally, we have ensured full continued access for Northern Ireland's businesses to the whole of the UK internal market. Mr. Speaker, the Brexit talks are about acting in the national interest. And that means making what I believe to be the right choices, not the easy ones. I know there are some who have said I should simply rip up the UK's commitment to a backstop, but this would have been an entirely irresponsible course of action. It would have meant reneging on a promise made to the people of Northern Ireland during the referendum campaign and afterwards that under no circumstances would Brexit lead to a return to the borders of the past. And it would have made it impossible to deliver a withdrawal agreement. As Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, I have a responsibility to people in every part of our country, and I intend to honour that promise. Mr. Speaker, by resolving this issue, we are now able to move on to finalising the details of an ambitious future partnership. The outline political declaration we have agreed sets out the basis for these negotiations, and we will negotiate intensively ahead of the European Council to turn this into a full future framework. The declaration will end free movement once and for all. Instead, we will have our own new skills-based immigration system, based not on the country people come from, but on what they can contribute to the UK. The declaration agrees the creation of a free trade area for goods with zero tariffs, no fees, charges or quantitative restrictions across all goods sectors. No other major advanced economy has such an arrangement with the EU, and at the same time we will also be free to strike new trade deals with other partners around the world. We have also reached common ground on a close relationship on services and investment, including financial services, which go well beyond WTO commitments. The declaration ensures we will be leaving the common agricultural policy and the common fisheries policy. So we will decide how best to sustain and support our farms and our environment, and the UK will become an independent coastal state once again. We have also reached agreement on key elements of our future security partnership to keep our people safe. This includes swift and effective extradition arrangements, as well as arrangements for effective data exchange on passenger name records, DNA, fingerprints and vehicle registration data. And we've agreed a close and flexible partnership on foreign security and defence policy. Mr. Speaker, when I first became Prime Minister in 2016, there was no ready-made blueprint for Brexit. Many people said it could simply not be done. I've never accepted that. I've been committed day and night to delivering on the result of the referendum and ensuring the UK leaves the EU absolutely and on time. But I also said at the very start that withdrawing from EU membership after 40 years and establishing a wholly new relationship that will endure for decades to come would be complex and require hard work. I know it's been a frustrating process. It has forced us to confront some very difficult issues. But a good Brexit, a Brexit which is in the national interest, is possible. We have persevered and have made a decisive breakthrough. Once a final deal is agreed, I will bring it to Parliament, and I will ask MPs to consider the national interest and give it their backing. Voting against a deal would take us all back to square one. It would mean more uncertainty, more division, and a failure to deliver on the decision of the British people that we should leave the EU. If we get behind a deal, we can bring our country back together and seize the opportunities that lie ahead. And, Mr. Speaker, the British people want us to get this done and to get on with addressing the other issues they care about. Creating more good jobs in every part of the UK, doing more to help families with the cost of living, helping our NHS to provide first-class care and our schools to give every child a great start in life, and focusing every ounce of our energy on building a brighter future for our country. So, Mr. Speaker, the choice is clear. We can choose to leave with no deal, we can risk no Brexit at all, or we can choose to unite and support the best deal that can be negotiated. This deal, a deal that ends free movement, takes back control of our borders, laws and money, delivers a free trade area for goods with zero tariffs, leaves the common agricultural policy and the common fisheries policy, delivers an independent foreign and defence policy while retaining the continued security cooperation to keep our people safe, maintains shared commitments to high standards, protects jobs, honours the integrity of our United Kingdom and delivers the Brexit the British people voted for. I choose to deliver for the British people. I choose to do what is in our national interest, and I commend this statement to the House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. and I want to thank the Prime Minister for an advance copy of her statement. The withdrawal agreement and the outline political declaration represent a huge and damaging failure. After 2 years of bungled negotiations, the government has produced a botched deal that breaches the Prime Minister's own red lines and does not meet our 6 tests. The government, Mr. Speaker, is in chaos. Their deal risks leaving the country in an indefinite halfway house without a real say. When even the last Brexit secretary, who theoretically at least negotiated the deal, says, "I cannot support the proposed deal," what faith does that give anyone else in this place or in this country? The government simply cannot put to Parliament this half-baked deal that both the Brexit Secretary and his predecessor have rejected. No deal is not a real option, and the government has not seriously prepared for it. The government must publish its full legal advice and the Treasury a full economic impact assessment of the deal, and the OBR an updated economic forecast. The withdrawal agreement is a leap in the dark, an ill-defined deal by a never-defined date. There is no mention of the Prime Minister's favoured term, implementation period, anywhere in the 585 pages of this document. And no wonder. There is precious little new to implement spelt out in either the agreement or the political declaration. Article 3 of the agreement states transition can be extended to end by 31st of December 20XX. Can the Prime Minister confirm that this permits extensions to be rolled on until 2099? Can the Prime Minister confirm that if the UK government cannot agree a comprehensive future relationship by January 2021, which few believe would be possible, and the last 2 years gives us no confidence this government can, then those negotiations would have to be put on hold? Because the focus would then inevitably shift from negotiations on the future relationship to the negotiations on an extension of the transition period, including further payments to the EU. Article 132 sets out this process fairly clearly. So can the Prime Minister firstly tell the House how confident she is that a deal can be done by the end of 2020, and also confirm that if a new trade agreement is not agreed by the 31st December 2020, then Article 132 applies, paying a huge financial contribution in order to extend the transition period, if we are to avoid triggering the backstop, as the Prime Minister insists is her position. On the backstop itself, should it come into force, there is no time limit or end point, and if either party requests a review, and if there is no agreement, it goes to independent arbitration. The backstop locks Britain into a deal from which it cannot leave without the agreement of the EU. In the backstop, restrictions on state aid are hardwired in with an arbitration mechanism, but no such guarantee exists for workers' rights. Can the Prime Minister also confirm that the backstop applies separate regulatory rules to Northern Ireland, creating a de facto border down the Irish Sea, as Northern Ireland will be subject to the customs union, but not the rest of the UK? This is despite the fact that the current Prime Minister said this is something, and I quote, no UK Prime Minister could ever agree to. Another of her red lines breached. In fact, the list of EU measures that continue to apply to the UK in respect of Northern Ireland runs to 68 pages of the agreement. This affects VAT declarations and rules of origin checks. And it's clear the Prime Minister's red line regarding the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice has also been torn up. By 2021, under the Prime Minister's plan, we will either be in a backstop or still in transition, where we'll continue to contribute to the EU budget and follow the rules overseen by the ECJ. It is utterly far-fetched for the Prime Minister to say this plan means we take control over our laws, money and borders. After 2 years of negotiation, all the government has really agreed is a vague 7-page outline of political declarations, which looks like a substantial dilution of the Prime Minister's previously declared negotiating priorities. There is only the scantiest mention of workers' rights, consumers' rights or environmental protection. No determination to achieve frictionless trade or even trade as frictionless as possible. No ambition to negotiate a new comprehensive customs union that would protect trade, jobs and industry. And so uncertainty continues for business and all those that work in those businesses. That risks decisions for investment being deferred even further, costing jobs and living standards, and many companies may decide the lack of certainty simply means they will Brexit. No clear plan to get a strong deal with the single market to ensure continued access to European markets in services, merely a vague commitment to go beyond the baseline of the World Trade Organisation. Both the First Ministers of Wales and Scotland made clear to the Prime Minister that participation in a customs union to protect the economy and jobs was essential. Likewise, Mr. Speaker, there is no ambition to achieve continuation of the European-wide arrest warrant or an equivalent, and no clarity about our status with Europol, Eurojust or even the Galileo project. And there is no clarity about any future immigration system between the UK and the EU. And following the Windrush scandal, many EU nationals here would have no confidence at all in this government to deliver a fair and efficient system. The Brexit Secretary promised a substantive document. He's obviously no longer here. So can the Prime Minister inform the House when that detailed framework agreement will be with us? Mr. Speaker, this is not the deal the country was promised, and Parliament cannot, and I believe will not, accept a false choice between this bad deal and no deal. People around the country will be feeling anxious this morning about the industries they work in, the jobs they hold, about the stability of their communities and their country. The government must now withdraw this half-baked deal, which is clear does not have the backing of the Cabinet, this Parliament or the country as a whole.
Minister! Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, to pick up some of the points that the right honourable gentleman made. First of all, he comments on, he said that no deal was not an option, but then complained that we weren't preparing for no deal. Actually, we have been preparing for no deal, and we continue to prepare for no deal, because I recognise that obviously we have a further stage of negotiation with the European Council, and then that deal, when finalised with the European Council, has to come back to this House. So we will continue those preparations. He says that the withdrawal agreement is ill-defined. 500 pages of detailed legal text on the withdrawal agreement is not an ill-defined withdrawal agreement. He complains that the withdrawal agreement does not refer to the implementation period. Of course, it does refer to the transition period, which is exactly the same point of time. He then talked about the whole question of the decision on the backstop and the implementation period as coming at the end of December 2020. Well, if he looks again at the documents that have been produced, he will see that actually the decision will be taken in June 2020 as to whether it is likely that the future relationship will not be in place on the 1st of January 2021, and a decision at that point will be for the UK to decide whether it wishes to extend the implementation period for a limited period or whether it wishes to go into the backstop. He is wrong in saying we have been absolutely... He is wrong in saying that we will have not dealt with the issue of the border and the Irish Sea. We have dealt with that. I was clear in this House that we would. It took some considerable time to persuade the European Union to move from its proposal for a Northern Ireland-only customs territory to an UK-wide customs territory, but we have achieved that. In relation to the question of workers' rights, there is reference to non-regression in relation to workers' rights. He says that the protocol, that the outline political declaration does not have references to what we were proposing in terms of a free trade area for the future. In fact, that is explicitly what it does reference in the protocol. It sets out very clearly that we will be creating a free trade area between the United Kingdom and the European Union. And then I'm really not sure what document the Right Honourable Gentleman read, because he said there wasn't references to extradition. There are indeed references to extradition, and he said also there was nothing about Europol, whereas there is expressly a reference that we will be including in the future document terms for the United Kingdom's cooperation via Europol and Eurojust. And I say to the Right Honourable Gentleman, there is indeed a choice before members of this House. It is a choice of whether or not we go ahead with a deal that does deliver on the vote, while protecting jobs, while protecting our security, and while protecting our union. Of course, what the Right Honourable Gentleman wants is for us to stay in the single market and stay in the customs union, which would not deliver on the vote of the referendum. We are delivering an end to free movement, coming out of the Common Agricultural Policy, out of the CFP, and taking back control of our money, borders and our laws. That is the right deal for Britain, and it is the deal that we will be putting forward before this House.
Mr Kenneth Clarke.
Mr Speaker, it's always been a Brexiteer illusion that the country can leave the treaties, the European Union treaties, while selecting to retain all the benefits that we enjoy under the treaties and repudiating most, if not all, of the obligations. And we have to face up to that fact. That's an illusion. Does my right honourable friend the Prime Minister agree that the biggest single economic benefit, in fact most of the main benefits that we've enjoyed from our membership over the last decades, flow from the completely open border between the whole of the United Kingdom and the rest of the European Union, and that upon that have been based huge flows of inward investment, the creation of just-in-time lines of supply, and very many thousands of jobs in this country. So will she undertake that we will not change the present basis of that, which is the single market and the customs union, until we know what we're changing to, and until we're satisfied that any change will retain those benefits and keep completely open from any delays and costs caused by regulatory differences or anything else which will be created by moving away from where we are now and threaten the economic future of this country very considerably if we just decide unilaterally to walk out, as some of my colleagues seem prepared to recommend.
Prime Minister.
To my right honourable learned friend, we have indeed heard from business a very clear message about the importance of frictionless borders, which is precisely why the proposal that the United Kingdom has put forward to the European Union is based on that concept of frictionless borders. And the free trade area that we have put forward is precisely in that frame. My right honourable and learned friend talked